Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into one of the American West's most fascinating and, frankly, bloody mysteries, a story about a legendary gang and the vigilantes who decided to hunt them down.
Just think about that for a second. What if the man sworn to protect you was secretly the one you needed protection from? Well, that was the terrifying reality for folks in the gold rush towns of 1860s Montana, a place where life was cheap and gold was king. All right, so let's get into the legend itself. It all revolves around a man named Henry Plummer, the sheriff, and his supposed gang of highwaymen. And the name they gave themselves? You gotta love the irony here. They call themselves the Innocents.
Now, according to the story, this wasn't just some disorganized bunch of thugs. No, this was a full-blown criminal enterprise. They had secret passwords, a headquarters, and even a special way of tying their neckties so they could recognize each other in a crowd. And the most chilling part? The man said to be pulling all the strings was the one with the sheriff's badge pinned to his chest. And man, what a cast of characters. You had guys like Boone Helm, nicknamed the Kentucky Cannibal, and yes, he earned that nickname. There was George Ives, whose crimes got so bad he basically kick-started the whole vigilante movement. The corruption supposedly ran deep, even including Plummer's own deputies, Buck Stinson and Ned Ray.
I mean, these guys were something else, defiant right to the very end. When they were about to hang Boone Helm, he didn't beg or plead. Nope. He yelled out his support for the Confederacy and then, get this, he jumped off the platform himself before the executioner could. Talk about cementing your own dark legend. So, with outlaws running wild and the law seemingly on their side, the regular folks got pushed to a breaking point. A secret group of citizens banded together, calling themselves the Montana Vigilantes. Their thinking was pretty simple. If the law won't protect us, we'll become the law. So how did this empire of crime crumble? Well, it all started when one brave man testified against George Ives. But the real domino to fall was a gang messenger named Red Yager. The vigilantes caught him, and with a noose literally around his neck, he spilled the beans, naming Sheriff Plummer as the leader. Just think about that. The entire case against the sheriff was built on a confession from a man about to be executed. And once the vigilantes got going, they moved with terrifying speed. Look at this timeline. In just over a single month, they took down the entire alleged network. No trials, no juries, just swift, brutal justice at the end of a rope. And in a wild twist of irony, on January 10th, they hanged Sheriff Plummer from the very gallows that he had built. Now, for about 100 years, that was the story, a heroic tale of good citizens cleaning up their town. But you know, history is rarely that black and white. And as modern historians started digging, they began to ask a pretty shocking question. Was any of it even true? And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? For over a century, nobody questioned the vigilantes' version. It was just accepted as fact. But the more people looked, the more they found some, well, pretty big holes in the official story of the outlaw sheriff. Okay, this is where the story really starts to come apart at the seams. The legend talks about over 100 murders. The actual historical record can only confirm about 8. That super detailed confession from Red Yager, the one that named all the gang members, the written list has never been found. And maybe the most damning part, there is not a single piece of physical evidence that connects Henry Plummer to any crime in Montana. Nothing. Zero. So get this. In 1993, a group of historians and legal eagles decided to put the legend on trial. Literally, they held a posthumous mock trial for Henry Plummer, right there in the same town where the vigilantes held sway. But this time with a real judge, real lawyers, and a modern jury. And the verdict? A perfect 6-6 split. A hung jury. Even after 130 years, the evidence against Plummer was still so weak that a modern jury couldn't convict him. Now that doesn't prove he was innocent, but it sure does cast a whole lot of doubt on his guilt. So if Plummer's story is so murky, how do we even remember this chapter of history? Well, a big part of it comes down to a strange, cryptic symbol the vigilantes left in their wake. 3777. This was the vigilantes' calling card. Imagine waking up to find these numbers painted on your cabin door. It was a simple, terrifying message. Get out of town or you're next on the rope.
The crazy part is, nobody really knows what it meant. The vigilantes were a secret society, and they took that secret to their graves. Could it be the dimensions of a grave? A Masonic code? A literal deadline to get out of town? Each theory just adds to the whole mystique.
But here is where this story takes its most bizarre twist. This symbol, this mark left by a secret society as a death threat, is now an official emblem of state law enforcement. That's right, it is on the shoulder patch of the Montana Highway Patrol right now.
And it doesn't stop there. The symbol and the vigilante name are woven right into the fabric of Montana's identity. From the Air National Guard to the state university's football team, even to a local brewing company. It's a way of honoring what many people see as the state's first self-appointed and maybe even necessary police force. So, in the end, we're left with this huge, unanswered question. Was Henry Plummer a criminal mastermind? Or was he a scapegoat for a lynch mob that, paradoxically, brought law and order to Montana? The story really shows you that the line between hero and villain, well, it often just depends on who's telling the story. 160 years later, the jury is still out. So what do you think?